Like a thief in the night, artificial intelligence has come into our lives. But what does it mean for the near future, and how should the church respond? Welcome to Freedom Alive. Faith in Jesus Christ means that despite how bad the circumstances are, we always have hope. Yet it's so important that we pay attention to what's happening with technology, especially regarding artificial intelligence. It's already changing how many people think, just as robotics is changing how many people work. And it can even change how people worship. Author Joe Allen has academic degrees in theology and science, and Joe joins us today to explain more about this potential threat to our freedom and our humanity. But first, our Freedom Alert is next. Pediatric hospital stops medical mutilation of children. Missouri's Save Adolescents from Experimentation Act recently took effect to protect minors from harmful medical mutilation. Those who are harmed can sue the medical providers. The Washington University Pediatric so-called Transgender Center at St. Louis Children's Hospital recently announced it will no longer harm children with puberty blockers or hormone therapies. Since February, the hospital has been under a multi-agency investigation accused of lying to parents and harming hundreds of children. The investigation began because of a whistleblower, Jamie Reed. She revealed how the hospital has been harming children since 2018. Reed said, "Almost everyone in my life advised me to keep my head down, but I cannot in good conscience do so, because what is happening to scores of children is far more important than my comfort." I'm very pleased with our special guest. He is Joe Allen, and he has a book called Dark Aeon, and the foreword is by Steve Bannon, Dark Aeon. It's a book about artificial intelligence. Joe, tell us a little bit about what artificial intelligence is, and I want to get into transhumanism because the title of your book, or the top of it, says Transhumanism and the War Against Humanity. I want to get into that later, but what is artificial intelligence? We hear so much about it.
Well, the weak case is that artificial intelligence is merely software used to process vast amounts of data. It's just code. The strong case, the idea held up by transhumanists, long-termists, futurists, accelerationists, whatever label you would like to put on it, the strong case is that artificial intelligence is a form of digital cognition that at present is superior to human abilities in very narrow domains. So you can think about the game chess, or the more complex game Go, or genetic sequencing, or predicting protein structures from the genetic sequence, or finding targets on a battlefield, or directing a weapon to a target. Artificial intelligence, computer algorithms are in fact superior to human beings in each of those very narrow domains. The goal put forward by, again, we'll just leave it at transhumanists. The goal put forward is to link those narrow domains, right? In the same way that the human brain links vision, speech recognition, object recognition, to link them together to create, in fact, a superhuman mind. Now, whether you believe that's possible or not, and many who are even working on it are skeptical, the declared goal, which I document extensively in Dark Aeon, the declared goal of many of these people, be they the technologists themselves or the venture capitalists or the ideologues sitting behind it, the goal is to create a God in silico.
Now, we want to talk a little bit about that, but pretty much everybody says, well, I may not have done anything with artificial intelligence, but if you're working on different documents and it has a spell check, or it's looking at what you think they think you might want to write, there's certain algorithms that are already built into those different word processing programs or online programs, or different kinds of things that you go online and shop and all of a sudden you get marketed for something else. There's different kinds of computer code that's already out there working in sort of an intelligent way on a level that we're all very experienced with. But then there's another level of this that is much, much more advanced and sophisticated with a much greater objective. And that objective that you're talking about is transhumanism. There is a robot called Sophia. I think you talk about this. And it was built in Hong Kong by Counsel Robotics, and it's become a global icon. Tell us about that. What is Sophia? What does it do? And what is this capable of doing with regards to these artificial algorithms, artificial people, artificial intelligence?
Sophia is important as a symbol. So to give you an idea of how profound this symbol is, on September 17th, Sophia addressed, this is one of many times, Sophia addressed the UN on their Sustainable Development Goals. And you have a humanoid robot, however clunky and Chuck E. Cheese-ish Sophia may seem to be, addressing the international body of the United Nations, and everyone acting as if this is normal, this is okay. So Sophia is created by Counsel Robotics, as you mentioned, was built in Hong Kong, mainly just because Hong Kong, or the Chinese government, was willing to pay to see the realization. And Sophia has been touring. There are about 4 or 5 different models. They all basically are the same, touring the world since 2016, giving addresses, high publicity events, things like that. The reasoning behind Sophia is not to exhibit the prowess, the technical prowess of her makers. Many people note that her speech is very halting, and her output is oftentimes glitchy. Her appearance itself is very, well, robotic. Sophia is intended as a conveyor of a prophecy, and that prophecy is the prophecy of the singularity, that moment in time when human beings will merge with machines that are completely beyond their comprehension and completely beyond their control, only their influence, that they will merge with digital gods.
You mentioned there was a church service that was conducted in Germany where the sermon was led by an AI creation. This was an AI creation that actually did the sermon in a church?
Yes, and again, this is a publicity stunt and very much symbolic of a much more widespread phenomena. So you've got, in this case, they use ChatGPT. ChatGPT created by OpenAI, of course. They use ChatGPT to write the sermon. You simply kind of ask, give me a sermon based in Luke chapter 7, so on and so forth. And it will produce it for you. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. The important thing is that it can produce an original sermon, whatever the quality may be. And oftentimes of better quality than, say, a mediocre minister would give. And then they added the visual effects, a visual avatar. It was all, though it was very symbolic. Right now, I don't know of any statistics on how many ministers use GPT in order to rapidly create a sermon. I would bet that it's much higher than any of us would be comfortable with. I would also bet that that number will increase going forward as people get lazier and lazier, and as the cognition that is human beings were intended to employ becomes replaced by algorithms more and more than it already is. I think that not only in religious communities, but also in businesses and education, in the military, so on and so forth, you are going to see that proportion of human and soulful cognition and thinking rapidly encroached upon and replaced by algorithmic automated thinking. That's the real problem that I see. I think that all of these radical technologies are very important because it gives you an idea of the direction they want to go. But the most important thing to remember is how far we've already gone down that path. We have already been seduced.
It's kind of like going from the manual math to a calculator, and then you forget how to do the manual math anymore. But it's much, much worse than this. And if you download, say, for example, a ChatGPT app, and you ask it certain things, it's amazing actually what it can come back and say. There are certain things, however, it will not go down that road because it's already got pre-programmed biases into it. And some of that is based upon the information or lack thereof that they have. But it is, frankly, astounding what it's able to do. And that's just one of many of these AI programs. I know there's been a number of tech people that are raising concerns, and there's certain meetings that recently happened in Washington, D.C. with regards to the concerns of how do we restrict, how do we control this artificial intelligence, because this can become something that actually gets completely out of control. How do we do this, and what's the possibility here with this artificial intelligence, number one? And then number two, we can talk about this later. What do we do? How do we protect ourselves?
So I think that how you protect yourself is probably the most important question, because I don't think you can expect your government or any of these corporations to do that for you. They're not going to try to kill people off en masse. I don't necessarily even think that's the major threat. They are definitely going to try to consolidate power, and our representatives in government are definitely going to do everything they can to ride that wave. So what I see right now in D.C. is the beginning of total regulatory capture, so that the corporations producing the technologies that everyone should be afraid of are in fact going to be the ones responsible for regulating it. And they will consolidate that power so that only a few different corporations are able to produce the most powerful AIs on Earth. Frontier models, as they're known. They will be at the cutting edge, but they will not allow smaller startups to replicate what they've done in more efficient manner. That seems to be the game plan. I think maybe the most important meeting to have happened recently, the day after Sophia addressed the UN, you had Elon Musk meeting with Bibi Netanyahu and the president of OpenAI, Greg Brockman, and an MIT scientist, Max Tegmark. That is probably the best place to look to get an idea of what really intelligent people are thinking and very powerful people are thinking about these technologies. And what they said is that, you've got Greg Brockman, the OpenAI president, assenting to Ray Kurzweil's prediction of the singularity. Again, that moment at which the technology has surpassed human abilities to comprehend or control, leaving us forced to merge with that technology in order to stay relevant. And when I say merged, I mean merged. And so what was really odd about it, Elon Musk is, to my knowledge, has been very, very reticent. He's only one other time that I'm aware of even mentioned the singularity in terms of its possibility of being a real prophecy of this techno-religion. Here with Netanyahu and Greg Brockman, he agreed wholeheartedly that that is in fact the path we're on. And of course, Brockman brought up that concept of merging with machines, which Kurzweil predicted would start occurring in the 2030s, roughly. And Elon Musk, of course, went into his project Neuralink.
Yeah.
And what is the purpose behind Neuralink? Anyone following the news knows that Neuralink is now FDA approved for trials, and they are sending out a call for human subjects. The initial goal is to help the lame walk and the blind see. You might remember that from biblical motifs. And the next phase, once that has been perfected, once these human vegetables have been used as lab rats to perfect the technology, Musk envisions a possible solution to the problem of super intelligent AI and the threats it poses. The solution, of course, is to use Neuralink to link your mind to an artificial intelligence version of yourself, right? A sort of AI guardian angel that will be trained on your mind, but will have superhuman abilities by virtue of its digital precision and vast data accumulation. And the idea is then to plug a trode into your brain in order to connect to this artificial intelligence system that will then allow you to remain relevant in the coming future that they envision of godlike AI being the most powerful intelligence on the planet. He offered the rough number of hundreds of millions or billions of people plugged into this system when speaking to Netanyahu. And that would mean then, of course, that a huge proportion or the majority of people on the planet literally function like ants in an electric ant farm, all pulsating in unison with an artificial intelligence queen. If that's not a future you can look forward to, I don't know what you want.
Well, I've been a supporter of Israel, and certainly Netanyahu has done a lot of good in Israel. However, when you look at his policies that he implemented during the COVID, he had some of the worst lockdowns in the world. He did the tracking and tracing, although it was voluntary, with a tracking and tracing app. I have friends that actually downloaded that QR code that tracked and traced everywhere they go. If they were in close proximity with someone, they would be told to quarantine, and if they didn't quarantine, the authorities would be alerted when they went outside of that quarantine. He really pushed this shot mandate. But then I also heard him talk about this very thing that you're saying, and he has a vision for really expanding this in Israel, and Israel is a very high-tech place in the world, one of the most advanced places for technology. So I have no doubt that AI is going to be front and center in Israel technology, but I'm concerned about Netanyahu's vision for it in the future. And now that he's meeting with Elon Musk, as you mentioned, that has a very disturbing trend that we need to be aware of. What you're talking about sounds like science fiction, sounds like something from comic books or something from some sci-fi movie. But what you're actually saying is that this technology is already here, and it is growing at a pace in which the technology can be merged with human capabilities. And it may well be this Neuralink that Elon Musk is now doing the human clinical trials on, so that you could have that merged. And this impression, these signals, can go into your brain that not only give you super information that you otherwise may not know, but also control your behavior, your attitudes, and your actions.
Yes, it's really important to note the current state of the technology. Right now, the brain-computer interfaces, which, by the way, as I detail in the book, BlackRock Neurotech has already reached the 50-patient mark. So they're already doing this successfully and have for years. Another company, Synchron, also doing this and has for some time. So the brain-computer interface is already here. Right now, it is output only. There are some possibilities for input, but it is only output, and it's very simple output. And the input implants, of which there are the most recent survey conducted by the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences is around 160,000, probably quite a bit above at this point, simple deep brain stimulation devices. But these can only do things like reduce tremors or even reduce depression, but it's very generalized. So this dream that Elon Musk has of a whole brain interface that is input-output so that the machine can then actually input visions, thoughts, feelings into the brain. That is, in fact, still in the realm of the dream, unless, of course, there's secret laboratories that have it, in which case it's secret, so we don't know. But I think the really important thing to remember here is this. What we're talking about is a global civilizational transformation that we are undoubtedly in the midst of. What we are talking about is a techno-religion that is guiding the development and deployment and uses of these technologies. And even if it is only an approximate realization, even if the promises fall far short of the reality, the reality falls far short of the promises. Think back to the great movements of the 20th century in fascism and communism. And fascism desired to create a new kind of man that was genetically superior through eugenics projects, and that was dedicated to the soul of the nation, the blood and the soil. And in communism, you had the promise of a new socialist man that would be completely rebuilt from the top down in order to embody a more egalitarian society and economy. Well, neither of those dreams came true. We don't have socialist man, nor do we have the Ubermensch, right? That has not happened. But what did happen in the course of the 20th century is that tens of millions of people died, and many others had their lives completely destroyed by the desires of incredibly powerful and maniacal men. And what I see is at least the possibility that these dreams, even if they're only realized in approximation, that these dreams are poised to cause far more damage than we saw in the last 3 years during COVID. But I think that those last 3 years are a foretaste of what could come.
Two quick things. The deepfake videos that we see, some of those are just absolutely realistic. Are those in part created by AI?
The AI makes it possible. If you didn't have AI training on people's faces and recreating them, you would never be able to do it by hand. The same thing goes for the audio deepfakes, which are actually quite a bit better. Most people can spot a visual deepfake. The best audio deepfakes, I can't tell the difference.
I saw a deepfake video of Governor DeSantis supposedly stepping down from the primary, and you literally could not find any breaks in the words, the mouth, the expression. It was his voice. The only thing that if you listen to what he said, that just doesn't sound quite like him. He wouldn't say it like that. Some places it would exactly be how he would say it. But it was absolutely realistic, and it was a fake video. The concern about that is what capability this has to cause international conflict, wars, to put people in places that they were never there, to put them beside individuals that would be hard to deny, to give their voice that matches exactly their own voice and their image that matches their own voice and picture. So this is a real concern. With regards also to the artificial intelligence, is it possible for an army of people, whether they're drones or whether they're real people with implants, to be created and simply controlled by some master source?
Real quick on that first thing, the problem with deepfakes is exactly as you described it. It will indeed, as it goes forward, cause tremendous chaos. The second problem is the solution. I'll give you one example. Sam Altman, co-founder of OpenAI, the CEO of OpenAI, also has invested in WorldCoin, which produced World ID, which is an iris scan that will link your biometric identification to your digital identification and your money. You're probably aware of the Amazon One Palm payment system. That's very similar. The idea is that we are moving into a world that the only way you can participate in the digital system is to prove your human identity by way of biometrics. It is very, let's say, mark of the beast-esque. In regards to creating armies of remote-controlled, brain-implanted droids, I don't know what the possibilities of that are. The plans are well laid. I don't know what the possibilities are, but I do know this. Insofar as human beings have linked their thoughts to the algorithmic processes in the day-to-day smartphone, and insofar as our virtual identity becomes less and less distinguishable and more important than our actual in this world identities, we are already there. Yeah. We are already in a world of mind-controlled zombies that are operated by computer algorithms.
Well, and in fact, you talk about your cell phone. The reality is that each person's reality could be different, because each person could get the different kind of news, thinking that they're getting the news of the day. And it's a completely different fake or different kind of reality than somebody just sitting next to you on a bus is getting, that they can manipulate your behavior in that respect. How do people learn more about this? Obviously, your book, Dark Aeon, is one of those. And where can they find that? Number one. And number two, what can they do once they learn about this? How do we protect ourselves?
So the first chapters are simply to give you the lay of the land so you understand who these people are, what the technologies are, and get an idea of what they want to see occur. The last two chapters in the appendix, I give my own account of what I believe the alternatives are, what I believe the countervailing forces are. My own opinion is that a return to and a strong embrace of traditionalism and what we have and a conservation of what we have been given is going to be the way forward. I think that we have to understand we are in the midst of a mass global experiment, and you have to demand that you remain in the control group unless you want to be a variable. And I think that what's going to happen going forward, I do not see any realistic way of stopping it. I do not think that you can expect most people to reject it. What I do believe is that if you have identified the core values that you stand for, you have to say yes to them, and you have to say no to those that are imposing themselves. That is the heart of Dark Eon.
Well, thank you. Joe Allen is our special guest. Your book is Dark Eon. You can order that online, Dark Eon, a very necessary read for this time such as we live in. Certainly looks like Book of Revelation and prophecies, certainly within not only the Bible, but these prophecies within their own technological realm in terms of where they want to go. The future is certainly ahead of us. We all need to be aware, prepared, and one way to do it is to learn. Dark Eon is the book. Joe Allen is the author. Thank you for joining us on Freedom Alive.
Thank you so much, sir.
I'm sure you've heard about artificial intelligence, and some of you may have played around with some of the apps like GPT, ChatGPT, and others. But the fact is, this technology has been around for a while, and it's just getting more and more advanced. I know that you may be avoiding researching this issue, but we can't ignore it. I'm not saying to misuse it, but I came across, as I mentioned in my interview with Joe, a deep fake video by the Florida governor, Ron DeSantis. And frankly, it looked absolutely authentic. Imagine what artificial intelligence can do with deep fake videos. Imagine what it could do with you, put you in a place where you're not. Make it look like you are in a location where a crime was committed, but it's not you. Give your voice to somebody, but it's not really you. Or even worse, a high elected official, maybe even the President of the United States, making a statement that could actually cause conflict with a foreign nation, perhaps even war. Imagine that happening with the conflicts that are going on some places in the world right now between China, Ukraine, Russia, and so many other places, North Korea. There's a lot of volatility out there. And now when you add artificial intelligence to the mix, plus, as Joe said, start to meld that technology with humans, with this transhumanism idea, it's an issue that is not going away, and we must be informed about it. And we must be prepared to how to respond and be grounded in our Christian and our Judeo-Christian worldview. So we hope that you take more time after this program to delve more into this issue, become aware of what's happening, and make sure you're prepared for what's coming in the future. Well, in closing, remember that Galatians 5, verse 1 says, "It was for freedom that Christ set us free. Therefore, keep standing firm and do not be subject again to a yoke of slavery." Our freedom is a gift from our Creator. We must never forget that and always protect it. So join us again here next, where you will hear victories as well as ways you can stand up for your priceless freedom. Join us again for Freedom Alive.